Greetings, Marsh here, and welcome to episode 232 of my modded Factorio playthrough. In this episode, we are going to build the next setup that will do our tier 3 ores. Enjoy. So we have an idea for a build, and we want to try to make it fit in this space right here. And it's probably going to extend up a little bit, but that's okay. We can move these. As long as we don't have to move the entire setup, I think I'll be happy. And I was kind of expecting to have to at least move some of these machines up a little bit, because that's why this space is here. And the cupric and ferric mixtures here will be moved, because they'll be bigger, so they'll probably be over here somewhere. But still, we want to try to get this to fit in the same spot. And probably potentially make use of these 6 belts, because we've already have this set up this way. And I think this stone is based on getting 6 belts. Yeah, it is. So, potentially, if we need a bunch of bricks, we'll be glad that we have this big setup in place. So, we can't completely process the resources up there. And it is hooked up with slag to an extent as well. So, there's logic attached, so we can't completely replace everything, but we have a setup here, and the crushed part will be pretty easy, I think, because it'll just be like this, just with more belts. So for now, how about we try to get this set up to fit in this area, and instead of just pulling this out, for now, how about let's make a copy of it, and we kind of need to figure out exactly where the space exists. Let's see, I think I will just copy it from here, and then we can use some hazard concrete to figure out exactly where all the lines are. So we want something that is copied, and probably, probably something like this. Although I think we want to do another blueprint here, because we want to bring those floor tiles along with us and find somewhere to put it. Well, this looks good enough. Probably need to help a little bit with the zone, although it doesn't quite reach in there anyway. But I guess it mostly would. Let's just see how it fills it out for now. We do want this one to be connected there. So let's use some hazard concrete to kind of mark the area we cannot use. And we want to have some amount of empty space between, so probably mark this as the one gap, because this is from the setup to the side, so it would be the equivalent of this belt right here. So let's put it like 1 to the side here. Something like this. Let's make another temporary blueprint here. Just want to be extra sure this is the correct size before we start committing to it. Okay, it's definitely pushed over too far. Guess this should be right here instead. Can't really see it right now because the belt is on top, but we're probably going to be pulling the belts up anyway. Let's mark it like right here. So the hazard concrete is showing where we can't build. Let's see what this looks like. Yes, I believe so, because I want to try to leave one space between these builds here. So that's what this power pole is right there. Okay, I think we officially have our lines, which means we can start pulling things away. As far as this, I'll probably just tear the whole thing up for now, and we'll put it down later. Or at least that much of it. Maybe like this. And we'll just grab all of it. There's a lot of old tier power poles in there anyway. Yeah, see, a lot of this is kind of incorrect here because we need to look at the numbers that we're doing. Well, we're crushing 4 belts of sapphirite, or whatever resource. Guess we're working on bauxite now, but it's going to have 3 belts come up. And then 1 belt is the bypass going straight to the ore bus. And then 2 of them are going to go into the ore washing. And then those outputs, one ore washing will come back here, and then the other one will go up to the leaching to make crystals and go out. And then where does that fourth belt go? Well, it could also go up, but logistically, it's going to be kind of annoying to have two belts of each crushed resource just for them to come over here and drop back down and get used up again. So I'm kind of thinking we want to send it down instead. So it would be nice if we could get some more space down here for 6 more belts of resources to go to the side. I mean, they could also come all the way down here and go across, so it's, you know, we'll find ways of making it happen. I'm just trying to think ahead a little bit here so we don't have to completely destroy how this bus is set up, but we want to try to reuse what we have, but it may be a losing battle in a way. Because a lot of it's going to have to get redone anyway. But I want to try not to tear everything up. So since we have a limiting factor at the top here, let's go backwards. So we'll start with the leaching plants and go down. And luckily we don't need these side belts here because we won't have any of the geodes to worry about because they'll be processed right here. So we need to do the leaching, and it needs to fit into this space. Alright, well, we need 20 machines. And I guess I'll lower this to 50 since we're getting by with less and less machines. Wondering if... I was thinking we would do like the top half be the leaching and the bottom half be the washing, but I wonder if it would work better to have them both just be side by side and go up and down. So we can kind of test it here. Where we have our plants, and since we're working on bombodium, I'll set it to that. And I think just a yellow inserter for all of these will be fine. Well, unfortunately, it turns out to be fairly wide when doing it that way. But maybe we can just do it with just the 2 machines here. So we'd have 4, then 8, 12, 16, and then 18 there. And we have a layer of hazard concrete we can remove here because it's just the one on the end that we're worried about. I don't know if we really want to mash things together, but we probably should, just to make sure it'll all fit. But it may not matter. Let's just leave one space. It's always healthy to leave a space if you can. So that gives us our 20, but we can save a pipe on this side by pushing these over. Can actually really save 2 spaces. It's a little annoying to smash things in like this, but since we're in a situation where it is advantageous, we probably should. Although it is a little problematic when trying to push them to the side because these pipes are offset. So we might have to push them both from the bottom here and have something like that. And with these bigger poles, we can just offset them by 2 spaces there. And it gets taken care of. And the input would come in from somewhere. I'll worry about repositioning these in a second when we find out they don't fit. So one of the output belts will come up, and I guess it needs to be red, and that will go to the bus. Although we do also need the input belt as well. So I guess we'll just pick this side up and move it over here. We will need some distance changing inserters. And we need the input. It should also be red, but actually that's starting to get difficult to power up here because of all the inserters. Because each machine essentially needs to have all 5 spaces on the side of it taken up. 3 for the pipe here and 2 for inserters, unless the pipe could cross over. But that would still cause problems with machines on this side not having enough slots. So perhaps instead we can put the power poles in the middle. And we'll need 1 more power pole off to the side there, but we can do the inputs here. And the long-handed down here. Okay. It might make it look slightly better if these were offset a little, not that they need to be, but sometimes it looks a little better when the power poles are going back and forth like that. And we'll potentially need some lights in there and whatever, but we'll worry about that later. So the pipes are mostly connected. They just need to be connected up here, but we'll worry about that later because we're going to have a lot more pipes when it comes to the chunks. And the chunks don't need to come off to the side here either, because they will also go straight up like this. As far as chunks, we need essentially the same amount of machines, which is nice. Let's double check, make sure that's 20, and it is. So basically, we just need to do something similar, but the numbers are going to be a lot different, making it a little tricky. But the concept is largely the same. Let's see if there's anything about this we can reuse. Potentially. It looks like it's basically built kind of how we would already want it, just with less of the machines. So let's just grab 2 of these for now and just kind of place them somewhere. Well, they would be lined up with this if they were up here, so whatever. These pipes do exist somewhere in the factory, so they are delivering them, but we will fix it. So the water pipes are on the outside. They have an input. And then the output resource is on the middle here. And one thing is, we had all these inserters with settings on them. It would be a lot easier to set these with a combinator. And we can certainly do that. But let's kind of double check the math here. Or I should say the concept, but the phrase still applies. Where we're going to have an input of 60 crust sapphire. So 30 is going to be on this side, 30 is going to be on that side. Presumably the white inserters will be fine. Guess we'll find out soon enough. But speed and speed. And then they get their input of water on each side, which they need, and that will be produced still locally, just with less machines down here. And the output will also be handled locally down here, and that goes through the middle. And then it's injecting the geodes into the middle, and on the outside it's putting our chunks. And because this is exactly 15, it might be better to give it some red belts for the geodes there, but remember that half of these chunks are going to go up, and the other half are actually going to go down and into this setup right here. And also it makes sense for the geodes to go down because we need to process those, and there will be a little bit of space on the side of these washing plants to handle that. So actually, it seems like this is ending up being a little more compact than I was thinking. I was kind of worried that this space would be very hard to fit all this in here, but it actually looks like there's going to be more than enough to make it happen. So I'm starting to get excited. So hopefully there's not something huge I'm forgetting. And we can set all these inserters. Since we're inserting on one side of a belt, they need to alternate near and far. But we also want to have wires hooked up to set all these. We'll set the geode inserters with the green wire, and we'll set the chunks with the red wire here. So we need to copy this again because we need a pattern. And also these need to be the faster variant of the machines, which are right here. I guess that's more room for modules. And then we'll connect these. We'll have to connect all of them in a bit, but at least all of those are connected for now. So we need to get these near and far set up correctly. And actually these middle ones don't matter. They don't need to be near and far because they're inserting on both sides of a belt, and it looks like they're not set that way. But these ones do need to alternate. So if that one's regular, that one has to be near. And same with that side. And there we go. Now we have something that we can place down a bunch. And we want to get the direction of this correct, because we want both of those to go down. And we can throw that in there as well. That should connect all of those together. So hopefully, if we've got everything, this should be the pattern. So we have 4, so that would be 8, 12, 16, and our 20. So hopefully that gets the job done. Let's do a minor check of our work. We'll just pick this up and then compare to make sure it looks like it would fit if we placed it in here. Sure seems like it. Because this belt on the left side of the blueprint would line up right here. And this would absolutely fit in here without messing anything up. We can check it on this side too, where it gets in there and it doesn't bump up onto anything. So that's looking pretty good. And then we basically have that same amount of space for these guys down here. Well, we can get all these belts hooked up in a second. Let's make sure that our combinator will work correctly. So we need some constant combinators. Might have had those on the bus already, but whatever, those are easy to make. I'll just put one on the left and one on the right here. So that one will be green. This one will be red. So if the green one, we would set it to whatever chunk we wanted. So we just need to set this to set filters. And then that works. We do have to kind of copy this over though, which is a little annoying. It's easier to do it one time on this setup than all of them. And the wire doesn't extend all the way down, so that's why all the filters aren't going down. When we connect all these together here, they're connecting, and it's a lot of wires in a small space, so it's kind of hard to read, but so now they're all set there. So let's set this back to bombonium, which I think was the red geodes. And now they're all red. And then we need to set this other side, which is a little more annoying. First of all, let's set it to the chunks to make sure that it changes. Because these are near and fars, we'll do set filter, and then we have to skip. And then move this wire down again. Actually, it might be a little easier to set the nears as well. So set filter, and copy those over. Then we just look for where the colors aren't anymore and extend the wire down. Whew. Okay. I think we're good here. So then we set this to bombonium. They're all changed. So that'll make copying the setup over for the other colors a little easier than it was before. Well, since we know where the belt's in now, we can kind of pick up these extras here. And see the chunks start there, so it doesn't need that much. And the input starts right there for those, so it doesn't need that. And these would insert on each side, but I kind of want to wait for everything to be nice and ready, and then we can place them where they look pretty in our little square here. And what to do about these? Oh, since we're tearing up a lot of this, we probably could tear this up too. Not that it really matters too much. But let's see. We do need to process the water, and we're processing twice as much now. So we need an input of 1500 water, and that's actually important to remember. That means we need to have 2 separate pipes. Maybe I'll put these here to remind myself we need 2 separate pipes going into here because of the flow rate. We could also check to see how many purified water machines we would need, because we would need 2.5 if we're only making it from sulfuric wastewater, but sometimes we won't be making it that way. We'll just be clarifying it. So you also potentially could need to make all of that water directly. So we'll check it with this. We won't link it, and let's just say it's 1500. We'll throw the speed modules in there. And the number is the same, and that kind of matches what we had here. So we need basically the 3 machines on each side like this. And I would prefer not to change the alignment of the machines if we can avoid it, because these belts are connected to things. So let's see what we can do. Well, first of all, we need the better tier of machine. We should have those made now. There we go. And in go speed modules. I'll get rid of this storage tank for now. Well, this is kind of a mess. In fact, the pipes are going in very strange directions, which I don't terribly understand here, why this freshwater pipe isn't connected to anything, it's just going down. But we do want to try to maintain the alignment of these pipes here, just so this goes in with a minimum amount of effort here. And we'll take care of that later. So since the fresh water is limited and we need 2 pipes worth, we probably want this to extend out of both sides. We only have the 1 port on here, but we just need to keep in mind that we have enough water to need 2 of them. Let's see, that's connected to something. Let's just get rid of those for now. So that's one of the freshwater hookups, and that's the other one. So then both of these would just go up and around in a way that made sense to get to each one of these, and I guess we're out of power here. I see that it's dark. So problem fixed. And then there's the saline water, which just goes down the line, and unfortunately I think we had some oddities going on, because some of these create saline water and some of them do not, which created some zigzags, I imagine. Or I see what we did. We had saline water on the bottom and then mineralized water on the top. That actually makes a lot of sense. So we'll need these to be here, and then the pipes will just continue to the next setup, wherever it is. Let's see, what does pipe visualizer look like here? Seems pretty good so far. We don't want to be using old power poles, so let's switch them to the good ones. And we'll probably need to kind of move a lot of these control wires around. Nonetheless, they're still connected properly to these inserters. And actually, we've got to look at the throughput rate. I've been assuming that yellow inserters will work for all this, but we should probably make sure. Okay, in this situation, they kind of don't. Looks like they just barely work for the input and output for the flotation cells, which is kind of surprising. But we do need the faster inserters for here. So pop them in there, and they probably need to be alternated near and far. Kind of. Well, that's actually something to consider. If we had all 6 of these going, we would actually be overloaded on resources. We would need 3 belts. Well, this might be a situation just to avoid having to move everything, because that means we would have to offset all this stuff down by 1. But would that actually be a problem? There is one extra space down here. We could offset them by 1. It would change some of the pipe alignments, but it would only really be on the end. So actually, I think I will do that, because each one of these puts out 15. If we have 6 setups, that means we will need to have 90 a second worth. But it's actually kind of a problem when we consider these inserters. So we probably want to have the yellow inserters, but have them inserting on each side, which means the lights cannot go there. So let's do something like this. Just copy them over. One of them is regular. One of them is near. And connect them by the wire. We'll have to jockey the belts around and make sure they're all lined up. But that seems to be good, so now we need to worry about this bottom part. And actually, one thing we'll need to expand, potentially, well, we need to expand the clarifiers, but the clarifiers will take speed modules as well. So we can actually just kind of back out of this now and delete this, and let's say we want to get rid of the wastewater. And we gotta find, is it hidden player crafting? There we go. To find the water void. Lock it in there. Add the speed modules. Okay, so we do need 4 of them, but at least it's not more than we already have, so we can just kind of get rid of some of these here. So this here is the output if there is too much, and we can put that anywhere, but we do have a little bit of space on this side, so might as well try. Although it's getting a little compact over there, I don't know if it would really matter. And I mean, one thing we can do is shift these over to the right. That won't cause any problems. It's just we don't want to shift them up and down. Because the wastewater is actually going to be coming from right here. So it kind of makes sense that it just goes straight down. So knowing that, let's try to get the rest of this kind of fixed up here. Let's just leave those as they are for now. We'll worry about lights at the end. Put the better poles in there. So I wanted to move this down by 1 to give more room for belts. So we'll do this. And there's our extra belt line. And then we probably want to pull this out of the way. Because let's pick all of this up then. And carefully move it to the right without flinching. And we do need to have that extra space right there for these pipes. So this is right on the end. Okay. We're starting to get something here. Well, knowing that these don't have to be completely mashed in, could potentially find a better spot for them. Because if I recall, we can always double check it again, that these markings are simply the very extreme edges of where things would fit. Because they certainly fit in there now. And this would go like right here. So I think that's, yeah, this is the alignment. So it still looks like it fits, but it's going to be really tight if we put it in there, and we don't really need to. So let's try to give some spaces. And how many spaces do we have available here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then like the 10. So that means we should be able to do like 3 spaces between each set of machines. And then they're pushed up right against the edge here. Although, I think we determined that if they could be moved down, that would be beneficial. Because it would leave more room for belts on the bus. But I think for nothing on this setup to move, we would need to have quite a few extra belts. In fact, we would need to have some belts for the hybrid catalysts that are going to come down here, 2 more belts for the cupric and ferric mixtures, and then like another 6 for these. So although we could squish these down to get another 6 belts in here, which we probably could, I'm not sure if we would really be able to make it all fit. Compared to the alternative of leave the belts in place, put the extra belts up here, and just pick this ore sorting bus up and just move it up a couple squares. Because with productivity modules, these are going to be twice as long anyway. So I'm not sure if I want to try to mash it in there. I just don't think it's going to fit. Well, we can try to figure out what that would look like. I believe that line was in the exact same spot, this hazard concrete, which means if we had another bus line here, it would be 6. But another thing is that we could potentially increase the density of belts here, because now we have belts that extend to 10 instead of 6. So we can get more belts in a smaller space if they were basically rebuilt, which is a little annoying, but I'm thinking a lot of this belting here is going to have to be moved a bit. So it may be unavoidable. But let's assume we got our 10 spaces and it would look like this. It would mean that this would all have to be squished down to below this point. And could it be? Not really. I mean, I'm sure we probably could smash it in there if we really wanted to, but I think just building with space is just a good idea. And the only reason this is working to begin with is because we built with space. Now that's not much space, but we did intentionally leave squares in here just in case we needed it. So whenever you're building a setup, you always want to try to leave a little bit of space, because you just never know when you're going to need something. So we probably shouldn't intentionally mash all this in here when there really isn't a great benefit to doing so. And this hazard concrete is already the empty space in the bus, and it's not doing a combined maneuver like this, so it doesn't need that space. So we probably can push the machines right up against the edge, kind of like they already have, because there's going to be, you know, an extra 2 spaces here anyway. It would look something like that. So instead we just want to move them to the side a little bit here and leave 1, 2, 3 spaces. Sorry for making you do all this work, robots, but it's for a good cause. So we pick all of this up, line it up here. Kind of hard to tell, but let's give it 3 spaces. And then that should leave an additional 4 in the middle. Yeah. Just in case we need it for something. And I think it just looks a little cleaner when things are spaced rather than all mashed together for no real reason. Well, now that we're starting to figure out where stuff goes, we can start to get the robots in here. Now they're already in here because the network's around them. But you see that's kind of the space we're dealing with. It's pretty big, so it should work just fine if we place it in the middle. It's a little hard to tell. This is the disadvantage of building close. You can't quite see where the edges are, but something like that. And probably an additional one down here. Should do pretty good. And get some charge ports in there. Well, we've got the crushed stone, which would come up through here. Actually, it just goes in right there. And then this first output is just the chunks, which go there. And the other output will come up, so then these 3 outputs up here are crushed, chunks, and crystals. And now we have to deal with getting rid of the junk. We do also have to do the crushing, but I think that'll be easy enough just to place down once we're down here. Let's see, we need to get our speed modules in there. Well, as far as the byproducts here, we have the crystal slurry we need to handle, which is actually really straightforward. And if it requires 2 point something of yellow inserters, that probably means we need 1 stack inserter. Although for that input it looks like we'd probably need more like 2, but let's see, this would come down here, and also we needed to move the extra water and also get it hooked up, but I guess it would be a little cleaner, even if the pipes get in the way of things, to kind of put this down here. We have these petrochem tanks, but I'm thinking of just using a regular one. It's interesting that tanks are not something that are in our inventory. I'm pretty sure we're making them. Just haven't bothered making a request for them, but you don't really use them that often, so probably doesn't matter. But we can put it on the corner here. And gotta remember, the rate that we're consuming this is going to be quite high, which means we actually need to have 2 pipes to handle this, which does make things a little tricky, and looks like these are spun the wrong way. At least some of them are. That's interesting. Well, there's no reason why we can't just have 2 lines of pipes here. Which does make things kind of tricky, because we need to insert the pipes on both sides of this. Something like that. Yep. So we're not overloading the 1 pipe. And then if there are extras, we can pull them off from the side here. And then we kind of need to do the same thing for the other side here. We'll extend this down. Although we do need a bit of a tank in here. Let's see if the blue tank will work again, or is it just not going to fit? Yeah, it's kind of pushing onto the no zone here. Well, that is the advantage of the inline tanks, as they are much smaller. Okay, we'll push those in there, although it, we want to change where this goes here. We want to hook it up there, because we want to be able to do a pump. So if that wastewater is over, I think 16,000 is 80%, then it turns on. And if this was just 1 over, that would reach. And we kind of got to do the same thing here. There we go. So the wastewater has now been injected, and because of the rate, we have 2 pipes going into each side, and then 2 pipes going into the clarifiers. And here's our 2 outputs. Because of the rate, we also need to have 2 different ones here as well. And we probably do want to have some kind of logic attached to this as well. It's quickly turning out that all this space over here is being used by pipes and things. So fitting the last few machines in here might be kind of tricky. But we need to have tanks in here to control the logic of the water. But it looks like they would fit. Because of the flow rates, we probably don't want to use the top-up valves that we were using before. So let's use some of these inline tanks. Just stick them right here. We're just using them for logic. So that gets the fresh water in on that side. And that should get the fresh water in on that side. Well, almost. There we go. I think that's basically all of the water components hooked up. Then the main thing that will control them will be the input for the water here to power these. And we need to upgrade them. Whenever the input resources exceed the flow rate of 1 pipe is when things start getting kind of weird like this. This is kind of about the biggest you can go. I mean, you just have to be careful with your pipes. And this is actually going to require 2 separate input pipes of the fresh water coming in from here. And they're just going to have to go down. Well, it would take slightly more space. But instead of controlling it on this side, I guess the pipes still have to go in this direction though. But the logic to turn these on and off can be like right here, and these poles are in the way. But if we put this like right here, and then that little space right there, then they squeeze in there. And let's hook them up with the green wire. So we have 2 20,000 tanks. So if we want to keep them probably above 80% in order to avoid having any flow problems, we should set it to 80%, but we could actually set it to like 20% if we had pressure pumps in there. And pressure pumps are always good for making sure that at high flow rates, the machines will still get their resources. So below 20% of purified water would normally be 4,000, but we have 2 of them. So that's 8,000. So that handles the water processing. Now hopefully we have enough space left over here to handle all the grinding of all these. So I guess we can just kind of put this right here since it fits. New tip. Did that get added? So that's how crushers work. I think we're good. So let's crush the red geodes. In and in. And then we can do some direct insertion straight into the liquefier here, if we can get it all to fit without the pipes being weird. Might want to move them down just to make it a little better, but That would make the crystal slurry, because we also need the sulfuric acid up here, so it'd be nice to connect the two of them, although that only applies for certain material types. I don't think things are compact enough to where we have to worry super hard about where this is lined up. So we can just do this. So if it's 2 inserters going in, it's 1 inserter going out, injecting into there, and then it's also creating some crushed stone, which we can also create our slag slurry from without having to move the stone around. I mean, we could move it down because we'd only need 1 machine for the other setup, so in that sense it just might be more compact to directly move the stone. But I don't know. If both are requiring acid, it might not be. So we'll just use the 1 liquefier here then. Plop it in. Make our slag slurry. And 2 inserters going into that. It's just less throughput to have it this way. And then the acid, and it would go wherever it needs to go, would go in there. And we would have our output pipe of both of those resources. And in this particular situation, it also needs the acid for those resources. But we also kind of want to figure out where do all of these pipes go. Because we're doing more processing here, we're going to have more inputs and outputs coming around. Certainly we have these fluids, which hopefully can just jump over this. We have to be real careful about that, but we're going to have slag slurry and crystal slurry coming in, and it's going to need to line up, but it could potentially come down here on this pipe bus here. And there are pipes, and that's kind of where the nearest acid would be. So it would just need to come in kind of up here. So it would connect to some things there and probably come up here. So as long as it's on the side of these belts, it should be fine, and then it can just go down. So I take that to mean that we can just kind of put it right here. So the crystal slurry is there. And then the slag slurry comes down as well. I guess this one can just be the acid. And if this particular type of resource requires a different acid type, it could be in this slot right in the middle here. So where does this go? To right here. Let's line all these pipes up nice. So there's a sulfuric in the other two, and if we needed a separate acid, it would go there. But since we don't need a separate acid, we can just slide it in here. And I don't know if the flow rate is enough where we'd need to worry about it. Overall, it's quite a bit of sulfuric acid, but I think it'll work fine without a buffer tank in here. We'll have to see. It'd be easy enough. There does seem to be a sufficient amount of space in here for a buffer tank, if we need one. But what does that look like with Pipe Visualizer? Well, it's looking kind of good. All this stuff is getting connected. Won't really know how it works until we build it. We won't really have much of a need for it, but put that there. And I think that has this upper section figured out. Guess we just need a few lights. Lights which aren't as important as they used to be. Let's see, this is most of it in place. Of course, these belts would continue along here, just going over everything. And I think that's pretty good. So before we build this 6 times, I kind of want to build it once. And at least make sure there's no huge problems with how it's designed. We can't really test it, but it's inspired based on previous designs, so it should work all right. But that's going to have to wait until next episode. Thanks for watching, and I will see you later.